And speaking of dominant, we're going up another weight class to 165, where Isaiah Martinez is the number 1 overall seed. He's 27-0. He's undefeated this season. Other guys on his half of the draw that might be tough to deal with. I mean, Chandler Rogers has kind of had a bit of a tough season. You wonder what he's going to be able to do in the tournament. Chandler Rogers, of course, out of Oklahoma State. Chad Walsh out of Rider has been very good, but he hasn't had the best competition. Isaac Jordan could be tough, but he hasn't really given Aymar that tough of a match. So I have to pick Aymar to win his his top half of the draw and get into the finals. On the bottom half, you have Logan Massa, Anthony Valencia. Daniel Lewis could be pretty difficult. Vincenzo Joseph out of PSU, Penn State. Kind of tough to pick as far as who I think is going to get through on that half. But I would have to go, if I'm picking one, and it's tough, I would say Daniel Lewis is going to surprise a lot of people and work his way into the finals there. It's going to be tough. This is one of those things where every year it's easy to pick the top seeds, but there's always going to be the upsets. I just feel like this half of the draw is really upset prone, and I think Lewis is going to be the guy to take advantage of that. But again, he'll be going up against Aymar. Aymar has been very dominant at 165, and I don't see that stopping in the finals. Aymar will win another national title for the University of Illinois. At 174, this is the weight class where I think the number 1 seed is the most vulnerable, and that's Zahid Valencia. And the reason I say that is just because he's been fairly limited in who he's gotten to wrestle against. He's undefeated this year. He's 33-0, so you can't knock the guy for that. All he can do is step on the mat and wrestle the guy who stands across him and beat him, and that's what he's done. But there are a lot of guys here who can be difficult. So Brian Real Buto's got the number 2 seed. He's on the bottom half of the draw. As far as the top half of the draw goes, you're looking at guys like Ethan Ramos, who's always been in that All-American picture, Mark Hall, Casey Kent, Zach Epperly. So if this is a freestyle tournament, I think Mark Hall should be the number 1 overall seed in that. Him and Valencia have gone at it quite a bit. Hall usually gets the better of him. But this is folk style, so there is a difference there. And Hall's had some trouble with that in the past. Obviously, he had a tough loss to Alex Meyer. He had a tough loss earlier on in the season. But from what I've seen from him lately, I think he's ready to do a lot, and I think he's going to win the top half of this draw. Him and Valencia are going to have a match, and he's going to beat Zahid Valencia in a close match and work his way into the finals. And then on the bottom half of the draw, you're looking at Bo Jordan, Brian Real Buto. Those are the top 2 seeds. You wonder what Alex Meyer can do. He's kind of one of those guys where he'll occasionally beat a guy who he's not supposed to beat, but then lose to a guy he's not supposed to lose to. You'd probably figure that's going to be what happens here again. He's probably going to lose to someone who's seated lower than him at some point. May even have an upset before then, but I don't really see him getting anywhere near the finals. Kyle Crutchmer is a guy who could cause a lot of problems. He's been very good in the past, but has had a relatively tough year by his standards. But I would pick Bo Jordan to get through on this half. I know Real Buto beat him before, but Bojo has been dealing with some injuries. It looks like he's been getting better. Had a good match with Mark Hall, and I think those two are going to rematch in the finals. And if you remember watching the Mark Hall and Bo Jordan match, at the end of the first period, Hall had gotten a takedown just as time expired. And since time had just expired, he didn't get the 2 points for it. Ended up losing that match in sudden victory, but again, if he gets that takedown, he completed the takedown, it was just the clock ended just at the worst time for him, then he wins the match, and he wins the match in regulation in all likelihood. Obviously, if the score changes, Bo Jordan's going to wrestle a little differently. You never know how that's going to work out, but Hall is definitely capable of beating Jordan, and I think this time he's going to. I think he's going to win the national title as a freshman, as a true freshman at that. At 184... this is probably the most competitive weight class. This has the most guys who have a chance to win it all. So Gabe Dean, 2-time national champion, finished 3rd his freshman year. He's going to be the favorite here, and it's going to be very hard to pick against him. He's 30-0. Some of the other guys who might be difficult to deal with are Zach Zavatsky, the number 5 seed in the top half of the draw, and Nolan Boyd. Number 4, Boyd's been very good, but he's had some tougher losses to some of the better competition. So you wonder how he's going to look. But really, if you look at the top half of the draw, I feel like the top 3 of the top 4 guys, if you're looking at it, you're looking at Sammy Brooks, you're looking at Myles Martin, and you're looking at Bo Nickel, and they're all in the bottom half of the draw. So for Gabe Dean, I think the route to the finals is going to be relatively clear for him. But that's where it gets difficult on the bottom half. So here's the thing. What we know about Myles Martin is that later on in the season, that's when he gets really good. That's when he gets really hot. Last year, he went in the tournament, I believe, as an 11 seed and won the national title. In the Big Ten tournament, it looked like he was kind of having a rough year at 84. Got to the finals, beating Bo Nickel on the way to doing so, and then lost to Sammy Brooks. Now, for Myles Martin, I think that Sammy Brooks matchup is a really bad matchup for him. Martin likes to do a lot of upper body work, but so does Brooks, and it looks like Brooks is better at the upper body game than Myles Martin is, and that's really given him a lot of problems. I think if these guys get matched up, Brooks is going to win, but the question is, does Brooks get to the point where he's matched up with Myles Martin? That would be a 3 versus 6 matchup in the quarterfinals. Sammy Brooks, again, he's won the Big Ten title twice. He was the number 2 seed in last year's tournament, but he seems to be kind of like Alex Meyer in that way where, if we're comparing him to another Iowa guy, where he'll beat a lot of guys where it's like, wow, I can't believe he just beat that guy, but then he'll lose to someone where you kind of expect him to win, and that's been the case in the past in the NCAA tournament. I'd love to think that he's going to get through. I think it's reasonable to assume that he could get through, but I've got a feeling he's not going to. He's going to fall off before he gets to Myles Martin, so that would leave Martin facing the winner of, most likely, of TJ Dudley and Bo Nickel. I think Bo Nickel wins that match. But then you've got Martin and Nickel going at it for a chance at, or in the semifinals for a chance at Gabe Dean. And, I mean, they've beaten each other already. Martin's beaten him in the final. He beat him in the Big Ten semifinals this year. He beat him in the national finals last year. I think he beats him again in the national semis this year and gets to the finals. But again, when you're looking at Myles Martin and Gabe Dean, that match has already been had. Gabe Dean was pretty dominant in it. Now, obviously, it was earlier in the year. Martin wrestled really well in March, but I don't see him rising to quite high enough a level to beat Gabe Dean this time around. At 197, Jaden